Hey guys, welcome back to the Bro Force Squad podcast. This is another Westworld review. Today we're going to crush, Actually, we might crash too. We do that fairly frequently. Episode 4, titled Dissonance Theory. I'm your host, Jeff Hornacek. Along with me today are my two teammates, Brian Banner and Alex English. Banner, this is the first time you've got to join English and I on the Westworld review. So first off, real quick, what are your thoughts on the show? And then obviously welcome to our little abode that we've created here.
Well, first off, thanks for having me. I know this is English. I know this is your baby. I appreciate you welcoming me in. And, I'm going to try not to shit on it too bad. It's a good show, but it doesn't have me on the edge of my seat the entire time, and it doesn't have me waiting for Sunday nights going, oh my God, I can't wait for this thing to drop. I'm just kind of like, I've been watching it Monday evenings. It's not that big, but it's keeping me intrigued. I will say this fourth episode at the end was the first time I was like, what the fuck? And
like in an upset way or in like an I'm intrigued kind of way?
Like I'm intrigued. Like now, this is now why I'm pissed that I started watching it from the beginning, because now I have to wait a whole fucking week to see the end of it. That's
good. That's what they want. I'm glad that we have kind of a different perspective, because English and I have basically just been praising this show in every aspect for 3
Yeah,
years.
we're actually, that's an interesting take you have on the show there, Banner. We're actually going to edit the first 2 minutes of this podcast out and just continue from here.
North Korea will be proud of the censorship.
No, just kidding. That's cool. Yeah, I definitely agree with Jeff that we have somebody who's not just like head over heels, just jizzing on this show every time you watch and talk about it. So that's good. Nice to have you on.
As always. So this last episode, again, it was called Dissonance Theory. They did...
You okay there, Banner? Are you dying?
I'm dying. I'm getting over a sinus infection. This is why I wasn't on episode 3 the other day. But I'm hanging tough. I'm with this
here. Invite you on, but that's cool.
Oh, well.
Yeah, now you're putting the whole pod in danger, really.
Yeah, well, fuck me then.
So this episode was called Dissonance Theory, and they did something that they have probably done for the first time so far, which has I think kind of equally balanced 4 different storylines for the first time ever. We've obviously been interweaving these different narratives through the first 3 weeks, but there was always kind of one that was a little more centric. Episode 1 kind of seemed like Teddy and Dolores with the Man in Black. Episode 2 was more William's storyline. And then Episode 3 seemed to focus more on the corporation of Westworld. This one, we kind of got all those thrown in together, and then another one. So we're going to really quickly go through these 4 stories. And again, we never brag about our preparation on this show at the Bro Force Squad. We're just bros going through this just like you guys. What? This is our fresh thoughts. Although we get paid millions of dollars to talk about this, obviously. So the first story we had is Maeve, Thandie Newton, national treasure. And yes, we have corrected on our Twitter that she's not technically from the United States, but shut up, she's hot and awesome. So her character in this episode... her character in this episode is having some serious post-traumatic stress, if that's what a robot can get. She just is tweaking and fucked up all over the place from her previous narratives. And for the first time, I think ever, there is concrete memories that she has at the very end of it, obviously remembering that she has the bullet in her. So English, I want to hear, because you and I have been praising Thandie Newton just in life in general, but this is the first time that we really get to see her bust out the acting chops in this show for an extended period of time.
Oh yeah, she was fantastic in this. So the scene where she is in the brothel and she's talking to the other whore, and all of a sudden, like in the middle of the conversation, she starts like having these like random flashes of like, wait, what is this? She starts seeing the spacemen, quote unquote, who are basically the guys that are there to like clean up the robots. And obviously we saw that in a previous episode where she was being all like cleaned up to get put back in the world.
Yeah, hosed
she
down.
Starts to like, she starts to like actually remember, and she remembers it to a point where she feels like she has to go back, break away from what her plot line is, because, seemingly her plot line is she's supposed to hang out in the whorehouse and get, guests to basically hook up with hookers.
Yeah.
But we see her leaving there. She goes to like.
But she's big time. She's big time because she's not the one who's actually having sex with them.
Yeah.
She just gets people to do it.
Yes, she is. She is the chief whore, as we called her on a previous pod,
Chief
or
whore
the
officer.
madam
Yeah.
of the
She's kind of
brothel.
like a Horosaurus.
Yeah,
Well, that's a good one.
Horosaurus, also good.
Hashtag Horosaurus.
And so she feels like she has to go back, and she's freaking out because she's like, "What is this? Is this a dream? Like, what am I? Is this a memory? I don't know what it is." So she starts like drawing this figure out, which she can remember. And a lot of the times, we've all had dreams. It's always a lot more visual than it is, you know. It's easier to like. Yeah, exactly. So she starts drawing this figure that she remembers, and of course she's like gonna draw it and hide it somewhere. So because she's freaking out, she doesn't know why or why not she's remembering this. And lo and behold, when she lifts that plank off the floor, which by the way, like really, you're gonna lift the same plank every time? That's one thing that I thought was pretty funny. But anyways,
yeah, I don't know how a robot remembers. Like, oh, I'm gonna hide this in the same fucking spot 60 times.
Remember like old school like Willem Barbera cartoons where like the one piece they were gonna interact with
was like a different color.
Different shade?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's like when you're playing Old Maid with an 8-year-old and he puts the actual Old Maid card up much higher than his other cards, so you will draw it from his deck of cards. Also, I can imagine she had the exact same reaction every time she pulled that floorboard up, seeing the other drawings, just freaking out. Over and over and over again.
Wasn't that so reminiscent, and we keep mentioning this movie but like, wasn't that so reminiscent of Memento?
Yeah.
Like,
there was a lot in this that actually reminded me of Memento, because the whole framing device of that movie is essentially being paid homage to with the way that the robots remember things in this sort of inverted order. That something like previously happened to them and it comes back to them in like a chunk of memory. So Banner, what did you think of Maeve's storyline? This, especially at the very end, you kind of sort of see she sort of comes to grips with, not comes to grips, but has a much firmer grasp of what she's seeing in her dreams. And it's kind of weird because we talked about this earlier. It's almost like a virus is being passed from robot to robot, but it seems like hers has actually progressed even further than any of the other ones that we've seen.
Yeah, I actually I like her storyline a little bit better as far as the robots remembering and kind of taking on their own persona, especially when you compare it to Dolores's, where hers she hasn't had any interaction with somebody from quote unquote the outside world, whether you believe Bernard is a robot or not. Dolores has that interaction where it's not within the theme park of Westworld. Everything with Maeve's character is that it's all within there, and she's learning all this on her own. She isn't getting help from anybody else.
Right.
And that's very intriguing to me that something has happened to where she is being able to recall these things. Just like I believe it was in episode 3 when she saw Teddy at the bar, and all of a sudden she had kind of that flashback like, motherfucker, you had 3 bullets in your chest. You were dead, naked in this glass box. I saw you, and then now here you are, not dead, naked.
I'd like to think that's actually how she was thinking. She's like, motherfucker.
Oh no, you been.
I was quoting the show right there.
But we all know that a chief whore would never speak in such tongues.
Yeah.
So blasphemy.
But I really like where they're taking her character, and she's kind of the first one that's saying, hey, something's not right here. And I don't know, what's the dude with the scar? What's his name?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you guys, too. So throughout the whole episode, and we'll get to this in one of the other storylines that was going on, but this woman with the snake tattoo and the bandit who the Man in Black frees, who obviously ends up with Thandie Newton at the end, they seem to have this knowledge.
That's Hector. His name is Hector, by the way.
Okay. They seem to have this knowledge that is above what the normal hosts know, and for whatever reason, they seem very hesitant to sort of divulge it to them. But when she started explaining what she was seeing, Hector almost seemed like, yeah,
he knew.
He was almost like, I know, but he like didn't want her to realize that he had all this information. So I was really kind of confused how there's other hosts that have. It almost seems like it's like when you tell someone a secret and they're like, yeah, I've known that for like 10 years. Like, why are you telling me now?
I mean, I think you could really interpret that to like if they're obviously being very direct and making this very video game-y, like from the terminology they're using to the way that the hosts are the way that the guests are acting when they're in there. I think you could simply just say that some of the hosts are maybe bosses, and some of them are just your random other characters that are inhibiting this world. So I think that's kind of my take on it. I think that's why some of them seem so much more advanced and like smart, quote unquote, than others. But I could just be a guess. But that's kind of my take on it, and that's how I've been watching the show.
Well, I guess this can kind of move us into our next one, which is sort of directly related to Maeve's storyline, which is the Man in Black and sort of the journey that he's on in this one to find the maze. He gets a little more information on it this time. We get a little glimpse into his personal life when that fucking fanboy comes up to him at the campfire and says, "I'm a big fan of your foundation. It saved my sister's life," and he just absolutely snaps on the dude. You know, sometimes it's not good to meet your heroes. I don't think. But I was sort of, but I was sort of wondering. So Lawrence, the guy that I kind of feel bad for Lawrence. He's literally, not even figuratively, literally been yanked through Westworld by the Man in Black for what seems like a few days. Do you think he is one of these so-called bosses? Because he almost seems to know, like, yeah, I know where you're gonna take me next. Like, damn it, I don't want to go there the entire time. But his character's disposition makes it kind of funny, when in reality it's like probably a pretty big burden that he has to get yanked around. Banner, what do you think?
I have no idea, but I just thought of this. Do you think so? The Man in Black's been coming there for 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that. Do you think that he's been doing the same thing for 30 years, like in 2-week increments, and each time he gets a little bit further? So he knows the next step, but he obviously he has to play along with Lawrence and then going to the jail and all this stuff. He has to continue to play every step over again. Kind of like when you had the old Nintendo and you couldn't save your game, and your mom had to vacuum so she would unplug your Nintendo, and you would lose where you were at. You just had it fucking paused.
Fucking mom. Just bring the grilled cheese and stop.
Yeah, no kidding. So
basically it's like the events won't set up the way he needs them to unless he plays along with the storyline correctly.
Right. And each time you play through the level, you learn a little bit more. You're like, well, this didn't work last time, so I'm going to try it this way now, and then eventually you beat it.
Right.
Like, it's one way to play video games, like you said, before saving was a feature.
Yeah, like you used to, like in Sonic, you used to be able, the first time you played it, you had one fucking ring left. Then you beat the first boss, you have like 100 rings left. Right.
So I'm guessing there, and this can kind of tie into English's point about Easter eggs, which they mentioned this one, which was pretty cool. So I'm guessing maybe like at one point in his 30 years in the park, he got like a sliver of information about this somehow, about the maze. And every time, kind of like you guys were saying, he's just gone a little bit further. And now it's progressed to the point where he basically knows the exact chain of events to set up to get him to this certain point. And he's just trying to take it to the next level. So we may still not even be seeing as far as he's gotten, I guess, in theory.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the way he was, like, progressing through this past... we can call it a level. I mean, it basically is. Yeah. Like, he gets himself captured. He gets put in this jail. He knows exactly what he has. Like, he knows the fact that he has to give the one host a cigar on the carriage so that it would explode his face later on.
Yeah, that was pimping. That was cool.
That was so awesome. Like, I love that. And the fact that he's like, all right, I'm now requesting a, explosion effect. Can I get that? And, like, what were we calling him, Jeff? The Hemsworth brother the black sheep of the family?
Yeah, basically the runt of the
He's the Cooper Manning of the Hemsworth family?
Yeah, that's exactly what he is.
At one point in his life, he definitely had the most acting chops and best looks, right? And then it just all fell apart.
He peaked in middle school.
He got an ACL tear, and it just all went to hell in high school.
He was a man in 7th grade, though. God. Crushed it. But I do like the part where the Man in Black is in jail, and Hector says something like, well, my friends are coming for me. He's like, yeah, they're coming in 2 days, but I really can't wait that long. So we're gonna literally explode this prison now. So I guess what I'm wondering is the Snake Woman, because it almost seemed like the first time he saw her, it was kind of like a new revelation to him. Do you think that this is now, because that's what I was sort of wondering, is her introduction to his story new, or did he already know that and was sort of just kind of playing coy with the other hosts and Lawrence in particular when they went to that lake?
Well, doesn't he say, hey, it's a shame we haven't met yet? He says that, right? So he's like, he hasn't met her yet.
Yeah, and he's like actually cutting up physical snakes. So I think he was not aware that it was a woman with a tattoo initially, unless he was just like, "Oh, I feel like killing animals." So
that's probably true. My take is that he hasn't met her yet, but somehow he ended up at the prison without meeting her.
Right,
and that's what I think.
But then the level actually, in order for it to work, he has to meet her first to then be able to escape with Hector and go back to them. Like
that's kind of what I'm waiting for. He already knew the step, but he had never had the opportunity to take that step yet.
Right. I like that theory.
And so moving forward, starting with the next episode 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever we see him again, all of this is going to be new territory for the Man in Black.
So piggybacking off of that, another theory that has gained a lot of steam, and this is the third of the 4 story arcs in this, is we follow William and his douchebag soon-to-be brother-in-law, who looks so much like Hector that I may even have a theory that they're the same person, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
There's so much
Logan.
What?
Is it Logan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think his name's Logan.
Logan, okay.
Big week for Logans, by the way. If you haven't seen
quite a few lines there.
If you haven't seen our Logan trailer review, go check that out, bro4squad.com or bro4squad on our YouTube channel. But the theory that has gained a lot of traction, lost traction for about a minute, and I think has picked it back up again, is that William is the Man in Black 30 years earlier. Now, at the end of episode 3, we see seemingly Dolores in present day having evolved to the point of having these conversations with Bernard where he's basically sending her on her own mission in the world, for lack of a better term, and learning how to use firearms and killing other hosts, and then running and meeting up with William at the campfire. Now, I don't want to say led to believe, but you would just infer, if you didn't know this was a Jonathan Nolan show, that all these things are sort of happening at the same time. But I still think that the theory of William is the Man in Black 30 years old earlier holds true, and I'm starting to get to the point where if that's not the case, I think I'll actually be kind of disappointed. So I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because this is the one that cannot be proven or disproven yet at all, but I think a lot of people it's really gaining a lot of steam, at least on the message boards that I've read.
Banner, I have a lot of thoughts, so why don't you go first?
You're wrong.
Ooh.
That's it?
Yeah, I'll explain it later when we go through our theories, but in order for my theory to work, that theory cannot be true. And
but you don't
I don't think they're related. I think it's too obvious. I think if people can guess that off of the second episode, it's too obvious for being a Nolan film or a Nolan flick. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. And I think that my fan theory is a lot better than anybody else's.
I'll say 2 things about that. So number 1, and this probably isn't fair to Jonathan Nolan and J.J. Abrams, but with their track record of incredible writing and kind of twists and turns, fans basically, it's like trying to
We've gotten smart.
It's like trying to cheat on a fastball, though. You try and get so far out in front of these things that to an extent they really can't throw a twist out there that like no one will have guessed, or that won't have picked up a little traction. And 2, I could see William being the Man in Black not even being the big reveal. We may even get that before the end of the season, I think. I think English and I even talked about this before. That's the best way to sort of throw the fans for a real loop, is have that actually be the case, but have that not even be the actual twist, because the whole time we're distracted with these crumbs that we're being fed, when in actuality something much bigger is going on. So English, I'm always interested to hear your theories on the William and Man in Black and everything else that's tied into. So what do you have for us this week?
So, I mean, when it comes to William as the Man in Black theory, I think at this point I'm down to about like 25% or less in thinking that's true. Yeah.
Where were you at before last week? Just so I know how much it's been dissuaded.
I was at 50-50.
Damn.
And the reason why I say that is because I now watch the episodes with that in my mind,
right.
And I'm trying to be like, all right, are they giving me crumbs? Are they giving me something? And they're giving me nothing. So if the creators of this show really wanted, it doesn't seem like a good way to storytell to basically ignore this huge thing completely for an entire episode. You know what I mean? Like, they would have something in there that would be like, oh, maybe this is a crumb that'll lead you to kind of believe, like something that when you watch the show over again years later, you'd be like, oh, look at what they dropped in episode 4. Like, how did I not see that?
Right.
And it's like, I'm watching the show with this theory in mind, and it's like, they didn't drop anything that would indicate it's not, but that's not normally how storytelling works. So I don't really think, I still think there's a chance. Just because, like, we talked about the logo before, the Westworld logo.
Right.
Like, when William shows up and he's getting changed in his outfit, like, the Westworld logo on the wall is, like,
pristine
different than
and
the one we've
new.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the only other time we see that old-school logo is when they do the flashback of young Robert Ford, 30 years ago. So it's like, So maybe they've had some logo updates in the meantime, but why is that why do we only see the old logo in those two instances? It's possible also that maybe William is happening 30 years ago. It doesn't necessarily mean he has to be the Men in Black. It could be a storyline that's
very true.
30 years in the past that somehow affects the way we look at Dolores at the end of the show. So that's also something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I guess to me, and maybe this is even like too high level to actually use to read into a theory, but the imagery with the white hat that he has now and the black hat. I mean, I guess we're almost halfway through the show and really haven't seen, as far as like a character development or a turn in William, we haven't started to see any of that. So unless that happens pretty rapidly in the next few episodes, I guess
If he doesn't fuck Dolores in the next episode, he's not the Man in Black.
I'm really kind of confused. Yeah, the Men in Black definitely would have got it in by now.
By the way, hot take. Episode 1. The Men in Black really did rape her. We weren't in there. We don't know.
No one was. Yeah.
Oh, you were? You were in there?
No, I said no one was.
Oh, no. Yeah, so we have no idea. Like, what? How do we know? Maybe he didn't.
Except
it seems like he's advanced. Yeah, he's like advanced. He's advanced past the level of like caring about murdering and raping without a purpose to actually get to the maze.
Yeah, and it almost seems like when you see how focused the Men in Black is on his mission later on, raping Dolores just seems so beneath him.
Seems like such a waste of time.
Right.
It's like,
if he only has
is this
2
really
weeks
part
in
of the level? Like, I have to rape Dolores to advance? Like, I guess if I have to.
So then, and I know we kind of
cheat code.
I know we kind of wanted to get into this at the end, but I don't know if there'll be anything like largely pertaining to the future of the plot. But do you guys have any theories on like what is William's purpose on this show? Then is he just kind of the point of view of of the audience, as someone who comes into Westworld and doesn't know what it is, and we're sort of learning everything through him and what's his future brother-in-law's name again? Logan. Through their eyes, because Logan is basically giving. It's not like beating you over the head, but he's giving exposition on Westworld in most of the scenes that they're in. Because he's the guy who's been there before, and he'll explain things that we're kind of wondering, but the show obviously can't just out and tell us. So do you guys think that that's his only purpose, or is there something maybe bigger that's going to happen with him? And I could say, for some reason, Logan, I don't think is making it out of the show alive.
Yeah. I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm not sure why they're showing them this. That's a good point. Is that they're showing us what Westworld is actually like, and the two drastic differences. You have Logan on one side where, hey, let's rape, pillage, and kill, and shoot, and drink, and do all these bad things that we can't do in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have you have William, who's taking it all seriously, and is like, what if we actually lived in a time like this? Would we do this? I'm sticking to my morals and my ethics and my code. And which side do you go with? And just kind of explaining what the park is to different people.
Yeah.
I have no idea, though. That's a very good point. And to this point, other than the fan theory that William is the Man in Black, there isn't another point for him to be in the show.
Well, I think he could be in the show as like sort of a vessel to get Dolores to the maze, maybe. Because I think it's been mentioned that Dolores is quote unquote special. She was the first one to be built and put in this world. She seems to have kept the same storyline throughout, and maybe like in order, the Man in Black had that speech earlier on in the show with her where he's like, we've known each other a long time, Dolores, and it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, when have they interacted before? Like, is it inevitable that the two of them will kind of like they both have to end up? The two of them have both had the interaction with like the young Mexican girl, like Lawrence's daughter, apparently, who seems to be some sort of a cheat code for figuring out how they proceed to get to the maze.
She's the chick you walk up to, like tells you how to use the new sword that you just got.
Right. It's always like some like little, character you wouldn't think to ask who tells you. Yeah, exactly.
She's Toad. Boom, that's the twist.
Exactly.
One other thing I just realized, and this I guess kind of does shoot down the Man in Black theory as well. But Dolores is clearly having these post-traumatic stress issues and the flashbacks and like the dreams while she's with William. And so if that's happening then and that's 30 years in the past, how has shit not completely hit the fan in the Men in Black's time? Like,
Right. That's also why I went from 50-50 to 25%.
Yeah, because that just doesn't make sense. She would just be complete.
Right.
I mean, yeah, things would be out of control. So, the last of the 4 storylines before we get to our theories and predictions on what's happening going forward in the show is Robert Ford, who I really like.
He's fucking crazy.
He is a psychopath. He's a psychopath douchebag genius, and Anthony Hopkins. If he doesn't get an Emmy nomination for this, then I give up on Earth because it's literally insane what he's doing on screen right now. He has found it again.
Do you think that like Anthony Hopkins would show up to the Emmys? Legit question.
What are the Emmys? I don't know the Oscars. That was not actually Anthony Hopkins, guys. That was me doing his voice.
Whoa. It was spot on.
So basically, in the beginning, you come in and you're like, man, I really like Robert Ford. Like, he's a genius, and it seems like his company's trying to fuck him over. At the end of this episode, when you see the way that he's toying with everyone, and he thinks he's God, you're like, this guy is certifiably insane. I hope the company takes control of this world because he's about to do something ridiculous. What do you guys think of that dinner / it was a weird, I guess it was a lunch? I don't know. Was it like a late
brunch.
Lunch?
It definitely was brunch.
It was brunch.
Okay, because they didn't have mimosas. They had red wine. You don't drink red wine at brunch, you swines.
No, you don't drink red wine at brunch.
Touche. Touche. By the way, when that robot fucked up and overpoured in his wine glass and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I really wanted Robert Ford to be like, that just affected the tip to him. Like, you're not getting the... it just went down to 10% as his punishment. And he's like, damn it, I have rent to pay. So, what do you guys think of that scene? It was the first time that we've really seen Ford, for lack of a better term, abuse his power that he has in this world and use it as a way to basically threaten people into getting what he wants. So he basically said, you're going to go tell the board that they need to get off my dick because this narrative is happening and it's happening on my timeline. And also, you're welcome for fucking Bernard, who's probably a robot that I created for you. I don't even know what that line meant, but it was very cryptic at the end. English, what were your thoughts on kind of all that?
Yeah, remember in episode 1 when you were like, Teresa, who's the woman's character, played by a really talented Danish actress. I can't name anything else she's been in, but I'm sure she was probably in like Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. I know that's Swedish. Whatever, close enough. Where you were like, oh yeah, like she's there to basically take over his job. If something, yeah, no, like she's so completely out of her element when she's talking to Ford at that dinner or brunch conversation that it's almost hilarious. Like she looks scared, and he basically is able to like freeze the interaction of like what appears to be dozens of robots with literally like not even motioning. Yeah, just with a thought. He's like, you're gonna stop moving right now.
I've said this before. He has an iPad app or an iPod app or something, iPhone app. It's on all of his Apple devices, and he just remotely controls.
Right, it's just like
he's more of a Samsung guy, guys.
That's true. Robert Ford has a Galaxy S7. Definitely.
Before it exploded in his hand and it all fell apart. But no, that scene was fantastic because, you know, he like basically he's threatening her. He's like, oh, I'm gonna bring you here, you know, exactly where when you visited this world with your family.
God, that was so
child.
creepy.
Yeah, and did you sit right here? And she's like, can't remember. And then she's like, no, I did sit right here. It's like, yeah, I know you did. That's why I brought you here.
Yeah, that was
so
insane.
I can tell you how much I know about everything that's ever happened in this world. And don't challenge me, and tell the board not to challenge me because I'm a fucking god here. Yeah. And it was fucking awesome. And the dark side of me really now wants Anthony Hopkins' character Robert Ford to just fuck shit up.
Robot?
No, I don't think he's a robot.
There's no
But
way.
I want him to just fuck shit up and I want him to win. Is that sick? Does that make me wrong? I don't know.
No, because I kind of do too. Because I dug in there so much after the first episode that now it almost seems disingenuous to stray from that. Banner, what are your thoughts? Because we saw a side to him in this episode that we knew Anthony Hopkins could go to, but Robert Ford was sort of this empathetic character. You're like, man, I feel for him. He made this thing, and we're trying to fuck it up. And now you're like, you kind of just are nuts, bro.
Well, we have to remember who he was talking to. In episode 1, he was talking to Bernard, who I'm like 90% sure he's a robot.
Yeah.
We can't be 100% sure, but I'm like 90% sure Bernard's a robot. Now he's talking to Teresa. Is that her name?
Yeah, Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now he's talking to Teresa, who I'm like 90% sure is a human. There's a complete different interaction.
You can never be 100%.
Sure she's a robot?
You can never be 100% on this show. I don't.
That's true. Not on this show. You're right.
Honestly, the first time that those two hooked up, I was like, one of them is a robot. I don't know which one, but one of them's a robot.
Is there any human in this show that's going to have sex with another human?
No.
What's the over-under? If I set it at 0.5, what would you take?
Ooh.
I'd take the over.
I'd probably take the over too, but I wouldn't feel confident.
If you set it at 1.5, I'd have to take the under.
Definitely.
I think there's gonna be one.
All right.
But you have to remember who he's talking to. When he's talking to a robot who is then turning around talking to another robot, Robert Ford is planting the seed to get Dolores to do what he wants without him saying that. Where now he's talking to a human,
Inception,
making the human do exactly what he wants.
Right.
It's a good point.
Yes, he's batshit crazy. He's a master manipulator. He's doing a fantastic job. And I'm going to say, going back to your point, Alex, I want him to win too, but I will tell you why when we get to my theory.
So, real quick, before we get to theories and predictions, what would winning be to you?
Winning?
Guys? Like, what? I guess I'm a little confused even what the agenda of the board is. Is it just to control the narratives in the park, or is there something going on that is...
I think they're trying to push Ford out.
But what do they want to do with Westworld? Just not have him there?
Yeah, I think they want, like English just said, they want to have control over every aspect.
Right.
And right now, they can't do that with Ford being there.
Right. I agree with that. And it's almost like they feel like if they did have control over every aspect, maybe they'd be able to monetize other areas of it in ways that might be more simple, aka like cheap thrills.
Get a Margaritaville up somewhere.
Yes.
That's the new narrative.
Yeah, that seemed to be like turned down by Ford
margaritas.
On the reg. Like when the British guy comes in with his grand storyline, Ford's like, which has probably been discussed over by the board over many meetings.
Right.
And Ford's just like, no.
It's the equivalent, I guess, of...
The board is probably tired of that happening, so they're like, we need to get this guy out.
We talk about this a lot on the pod, so I guess it's a good analogy would be it's kind of the equivalent of studio interference with sort of a director's project, and Robert Ford is the director who has earned the right, or can just basically tell the studio to go suck it and do his own movie.
Yeah, that's
like
a good
that.
one.
You think this is just Nolan being like, whenever I work with my brother and they don't let him do what... No, I'm just kidding. They let him do whatever he wants.
So last part of the show, guys, and I don't have much here, but I know pre-pod when we were talking about this, I'm just really interested to hear your thoughts. So theories and predictions, we'll let you throw out either or anything that you have. I guess, Banner, do you want to go first, or should we toss it over to English? Because I know one of...
English, go ahead, go first.
Well, all our faces explode.
I'm just gonna touch real quick on Bernard as a robot. So the two main theories are William is the Man in Black 30 years earlier. I've already said I think that's 25% or less at this point, just because I don't think the show is giving us any crumbs. And I don't really think, it's a great theory, but...
To be fair, that theory surfaced, I think, way too early for a show like this.
You're right. And a show like this has those tendencies because there's much, like...
And that's fine.
Yeah, they ask a lot of questions. They don't give a lot of answers. It's built for theories, right? Like Reddit goes crazy for a TV show.
We're also
like this.
4 episodes in.
Right, out of 10. So there's, and by the way, Evan Rachel Wood, after episode 3, tweeted out, and we retweeted this on our Twitter account at Bro4Squad. She said, episode 5, guys. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
And it's like, oh my god, how are you gonna do this 2 weeks
episode
3? Yeah, like we have 2 weeks now. Like I'm sure episode 5 halfway is gonna have something crazy, but just don't do that to us. But anyways, so I think I'm at 25% with that theory right now. The other big theory is that Bernard is a robot, and I thought my 75% he was going to be exciting, but apparently Banner's at 90. But I'm going to stick with my 75.
Such
The
a
reason
topper.
why, and I was probably at 50-50 with that last week. The reason why I went up to 75 is the conversation when Dolores is talking to, they're doing their like weekly, I'm going to kind of
Check-ins or
talk to
whatever.
Dolores
Yeah.
and see how she's doing type. Which, by the way, like, when does he have time to bring her in? Like, that's another part that's kind of confusing. Like,
And how did they like?
was she like?
How did they just walk into the park and pick her up? Like, all right, she needs to leave.
Right, like was she like asleep on William's arms, at the campfire, and then they're like, we're just gonna take her for a while for like, basic upgrades, and then we'll bring her back. It's like, how does that work? But anyways, they have that conversation, and Dolores is like, I remember my parents being, massacred, and Bernard's like, would you like me to go ahead and have that removed from you so you don't feel the pain? And she's like, well, the pain is the only thing I have left.
Which is very emo, but also very telling at the same. Like,
yeah, but it's like
what
the
if
only
Bernard
way you
goes?
Can actually like remember.
I wish Bernard would
remember
have
those
said,
people.
"Are those good Charlotte lyrics?" That you're.
But in like a previous episode when Bernard is talking to his, and I'm doing air quotes right now, when he's talking to his wife and like Skyping her,
Yeah.
right? He says the exact same thing. He's basically like, oh, the only thing I remember my son by is the pain I suffered while he was sick. It's like, it's almost like they have the same.
Because that was programmed in. It's like that's.
Yeah, they have the same hardwire programming in their minds, and they're just saying the same thing, and he just doesn't realize it. So that's why when she said that, I was like, they're making this very obvious. Like the very next episode, he mentions the exact same line. A robot mentions the exact same line that Bernard, who we think is a real character, mentioned the week before, but I don't think he is. So that's where I'm at 75% with that one. And then I finally have my own crackpot theory, which
God, I want to hear this. So
feel free to laugh at me and just call me a retard. Like, I haven't seen this anywhere else on the internet, but they keep mentioning this Arnold character who was supposedly Robert Ford's partner.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime a TV show mentions things without showing them, I'm always kind of like, What are you saying here? Is this
not
something
by
that
accident.
actually took place?
Yeah.
So my theory is that I don't think there was an Arnold. I think Robert Ford and Arnold are one and the same, and he's just referring to another time, another era, because he's mentioned some sort of like event that took place 30 years ago. I don't think there is an Arnold. I think it's one and the same. I think he is the end all be all of the world, and we'll find out what it means in future episodes, but I don't think there was another guy.
Could the Man in Black be Arnold, and Ford created this maze thing, and Arnold was pissed, and so now he wants to figure it out?
Could be. I mean, it could be. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's why this show is awesome, because we can.
The Man in Black's knowledge of Arnold in this episode is what also opened up a lot of questions for me, because he referenced him. I can't remember if it was to Lawrence or to the snake tattoo lady, but to my knowledge, he's the first character besides Robert Ford to actually reference Arnold by name. Is that correct? I know he told about him to Bernard.
That is correct. Yeah, that's a fact.
Except for the guy with the milk that just was running around saying Arnold, Arnold, Arnold.
Oh,
wait,
yeah.
Is that true?
I forgot about. Was that what he was saying when the dude went nuts in the bar and shot everybody, and the milk was like pouring through his bullet holes?
Is that in the first episode?
It was either the first.
I think that was
second,
episode 2.
Yeah, I think it was episode 2. Like they go through and he shoots all these people, and they're like, yeah, he massacred.
That's right.
8
Didn't
people.
one of the technicians say, "Who's Arnold"?
Yeah.
I forgot about
shit!
that.
I didn't even realize that. That's awesome.
Damn, bro.
Banner. I'm gonna go back and watch that episode right now.
That's a fucking bombshell you just dropped, Banner.
All
and again, I hope
let me
everyone
Let
listening.
me give you my theory then.
I was gonna say, I hope everyone listening at home just felt that revelation as hard as I did.
And I want to preface this with, I haven't been on any message boards. I haven't read anything online. I literally watched the episodes.
What do you have, a life?
I bullshitted with these two guys a little bit about it. Other than this is my thoughts. And if this is on the internet and I quote unquote took it from somebody, fuck them. It was my idea.
I agree.
First off, I think that Dolores is some sort of rendition of somebody that Ford left behind before he entered the park or started creating the park. Next, I think that Teddy is a rendition of Ford as a younger man.
Yeah, he's like, I was that hot.
Yeah, like he goes, if I were in Westworld or in the West, Wild Wild West back then, I would be Teddy.
How big do you
Now-
think Teddy's robot dick is then? Like 15 inches?
Yeah,
Just
it's about
because
7.
Ford's ego is so massive?
James Marsden, please come on the show and talk about your dick.
Yeah, well, you went to Oklahoma State. I'm a big fan of that school.
Yes, I as well.
Continue.
Here's my big theory though. The Man in Black is either related to Arnold or to Ford. He comes from money. If you were one of the two creators of Westworld, you've got fucking money.
And it almost seems, and English brought this up earlier, the technicians allow him to do even more. He has more autonomy in the park than it seems like
He can
even
do
a high
whatever
roller.
he wants.
Yeah.
And I had this theory before this episode, but in this episode, when the guy comes up and goes, "Your foundation saved my wife,"
Mm-hmm.
okay,
My sister. It was my sister.
or my sister, whatever it was.
They were a family
I
from
think-
Arkansas. It was both.
I think he is more. It was fucked up. I think that it was more. It's more likely he's related to Arnold because Arnold died due to whatever.
Or did he?
A foundation is set up in his name, and the Man in Black runs that. And then 2 weeks or a month out of the year, he goes back to Westworld to solve the problem that killed Arnold.
I'll
Maybe
say this.
possibly a brother or a cousin.
I love
something
that.
To the point of the Man in Black possibly being Arnold, do you think there is significance to us not actually knowing his name? Or is it merely just to kind of create this allure around the Man in Black, and that's his persona in the world?
I mean, we don't know his name, and now he's connected to 2 or 3 theories. He's either William, he could be Arnold, now
But I think we can all agree
relative of Arnold.
he's not just some rich guy who is like wanting to level up in the park. Like there's got to be something else going on there, right?
Yes, there has to be.
Right.
He wouldn't be this. He wouldn't be this big of a character if there wasn't.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's definitely something to us not knowing his name. Like, that's a really good point. Like, why don't we know his name?
Yeah, they could just tell. I mean, if his name was Chuck, maybe it wouldn't be as intimidating. But is it really important to the audience that we're intimidated by him?
Right, like, it has to be part of some reveal later on. Otherwise, what's the point of hiding his name?
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I don't have any brain matter left, guys. That was great. Episode 4, Dissonance Theory of Westworld, was phenomenal. Is there anything else you guys need to get off your chest?
Wait a minute. I have a prediction that I'd like to drop on y'all.
Please.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Okay. I mean, it's not that exciting, but okay, so the character of Elsie. She's
Which
the
one's
one.
it?
She's like the technician that's like.
Oh,
Says
yeah,
fuck
yeah, yeah.
a lot.
Kind of looks like Rose Byrne's like
She's
younger
kind of a
sister.
She's a
She's kind of
firecracker.
like Rose Byrne's younger sister that you could actually hook up with.
Yeah.
Like Rose Byrne, you'd never have a chance, but you would like approach Elsie. You'd be like, "Oh, hey, what's up? Yeah," and then all of a sudden you'd be making out with her, and
it's a
Rose Byrne would be
great
like,
idea.
"Who'd you make out with?" Gross.
Yeah.
Not that we're gross.
And
but
then you can
we're
tell
gross.
people like, yeah, I hooked up with Rose Byrne, and then real quietly go, sister. Like really
right.
quietly.
But so you know who I'm talking about, though, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I actually like her character a lot.
Yeah, she's the one who's like most chill, and she's like, I'm the only one who doesn't fucking have an agenda around this. Like, what the fuck's going
I
on
think she
here? Why is
actually
everybody all-
said that line
And she's
in this
working
episode,
for a
too.
robot.
Right, exactly, and she has no idea. So I think that by the end of the season, she is actually going to be the one who's going to figure out some huge reveal, puzzle, corruption type of a plot line. But the problem is, as is always the case, she won't have anybody that she'll be able to like actually reveal it to.
I think Hemsworth, there's something shady going on with him too. He
I
gives
think
these
her
looks.
and Cooper Hemsworth are going to be the first and possibly only human couple to have sex.
I think
okay.
I think
I like
Hemsworth
that.
is a puppet for somebody. He just gives these looks occasionally, and like when things go awry, he's almost like, how much does Elsie know? I could see there being not like a big twist with him, but he ends up just being kind of like a pawn for someone else.
I just like that we've merged two underwhelming brothers of two famous families.
That's what we do on the Bro Force Squad. We bring families together, and if you're in Arkansas, we tear them apart. Last thing I want to ask: do any of you guys have any guesses as to what Ford's actual narrative will be?
I have no idea.
And does it matter?
No.
He was bringing in like a crazy earth mover to like tear down the place, where they were apparently planting agave plants to make some delicious tequila. Oh, would you tear that down? That was horrible.
I don't know, but that was
cried.
tough. That was
Not
tough
enough
to
worms.
watch. Yeah, that was tough to watch. All right, guys. Great work today, as always. I'm hoping if Evan Rachel Wood's tweet is any indication that after next week's episode, which of course is episode 5, we will have probably our best episode review yet on the pod. So for those of you that listen to us, we appreciate it. We are the Bro Force Squad. Be sure to check us out on all platforms, broforcesquad.com. Check out our Facebook, Bro Force Squad, YouTube, Bro Force Squad, Twitter, Bro Force Squad, 3 words. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.